We rolling.
Oh, we're good, huh? We're good.
Yeah,
Everybody's. This one stays down. You're on number 4, so I know all that stuff. Mics are good. About hour.
Yeah. Well, I gotta
All right, you guys are
go.
awesome people. I'm just double checking, making sure I did what I'm supposed to do, and I did.
Are you leaving us? You're leaving us?
Well, no, I'm going to
Oh, okay. Have fun on your single couch.
All right, here we go. What's up, guys?
Yeah.
I'm Joe Vargas and Duarte Maggie.
I'm on
And
this
then
side.
we got my homie, Chris Leben today. I'm excited, bro. I'm so excited. How you been?
I've been good, man. Busy.
That's a good thing, right?
Excited to be here. Excited to do the show. So yeah.
Man, we have so many questions. We're going to try to squeeze it all in. And I was debating. I've been, every fucking show that I've done, it's been easy. But I'm like, this one's kind of special. It's special to me. They're all special. Don't get me wrong. But this one, I've got the pleasure to work with Chris on his last fight and hang out with him and spar with him and train with him. And it's just a little more personal, you know? It's like, so I was like, how can I start the podcast? And I don't even know if Chris remembers this, but I was thinking, Maggie, when I first met Chris, we were sparring at a different gym, right?
Yeah.
And Chris was there, and some of my fighters were sparring, right? And
That was your brother.
yeah, my brother and
Well,
Cece,
your brother.
and Cece, yeah,
Yeah.
they were sparring, and
And he kept fucking hitting my guy after the bell.
well, that's a psychological thing that I like to do when I go
It's
to different gyms.
bullshit.
So Chris was sitting down, and he said some things, and at this time, I don't know the UFC. All I know is Ken Shamrock, Royce Gracie, the guys who were the ones that when it first started and when they had no weight divisions and shit. And I never watched the UFC. So I don't know who Chris is. No disrespect. I didn't know who UFC was, MMA. He looked fucking mean.
So what? You told him hit him after the bell every time.
No. I told him every time. No. I told him every time you have a hard competitive sparring session, when the bell rings, hit them right when the bell rings so they can go back to the corner and you can disrupt that corner.
Yeah.
And Chris,
when the bell rings and after the bell rings.
Hit him with the 1-2.
It's fine, but it's a definitive line.
so that's why he's a referee now. You see that? So
2 different things.
So it was fine. I know I was. You know, I know what it is. But we've had some words, me and Chris, and I'm like, one of the guys comes up to me and tells me, "Hey, bro, that's Chris Leben. Like, chill out a little bit, dog." Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Man, fuck that. Who gives a shit?" You know. And I'm like, but that was just my stupid talking, you know. And I was like, he's an MMA fighter, and I'm like, who gives a fuck, you know? Thinking I could fucking stand up with the fucking MMA guy.
I remember that. Yeah, that was.
So then I get in the car, Maggie, and I Google Chris Leben, and I'm like, fuck, I dodged a bullet on that one.
Fucking red hair and shit.
And it's a small world. We end up
it got heated for a second.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just like talking shit back, and he was too, and we were like, oh fuck. Thank God it didn't go further than that.
Yeah.
And then look how the world is. Like a year or two later, I don't remember how much time passed, but we ended up working under the same gym for a while. And we ended up working out together. And I was like, dude, I dodged a bullet. And one day I sparred Chris.
Yeah.
Well, he sparred more than once, but one day I sparred him. I'm like, thank God I didn't fucking fight him, dog. I ain't never felt that fucking strength, Maggie.
Yeah.
That motherfucker is strong and he knows what the fuck he's doing. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know UFC fighters. Like, I didn't know it. Now I know who's who and what's what.
Right.
But I watched like everybody did the MMA when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
You jumped in MMA when it first started.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, I was part of the wave when it first went mainstream.
Right.
You know, there was obviously, you know, my coaches and people before me, you know, Randy Couture, you know, was my coach. He was, you know, one of the founders, you know, obviously Royce Gracie. They're a generation above me, you know. So it was still obscure though. It was obscure until that first Ultimate Fighter. And then that's when people started knowing what it was. Yeah. When I started, I mean, it wasn't cool to be a fighter when I started.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a question I had for you. It's kind of like cliche, but I was like, what would this Chris tell the young Chris when he first started What would he do different?
Go back to school. I mean, it's the same thing I tell
forget about school. Yeah, you're gonna do it. What would you tell yourself?
You know, I think probably the best advice would have been pay attention who you're hanging out with. You know, once you start to make it, you know, and I see it now with a lot of guys, young guys nowadays too. You know, all of a sudden, all these friends pop up out of the woodwork, all these people, and all of a sudden you're cool and you're getting into the club, and you know you're skipping the line and you're getting bottle service and everything else, and it all comes with a price. You know, it all comes in a price. So, you know, your time is valuable, you know, pick who you're hanging out with, you know, and when you walk out the door, you need to be thinking, you know, is this helping my career or is this hurting my career?
Exactly.
You know, I certainly would have done a lot more of that, you know, looking back.
That's a great question to ask yourself. Is this going to help me? Is this going to hurt me? I think it would benefit a lot of fighters to ask themselves before they're going to do anything, even simple shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a good one.
I actually had a sign on my door that said that. So every time I walked out the front door, I'd read that sign, you know, is this helping me or hurting me? Because I mean, when you're a fighter, everything you're doing is going to play a role, you know, especially as you get closer and closer to the fight, you know. Is this bag of chips going to help me or is it going to hurt me? You know, well, if I'm 3 months out, it's probably not that big of a deal. But if I'm a week out from the fight, you know, bag of chips is a problem, you know? So as you get closer and closer to the fight, everything has to be carefully measured.
It's like I always trip out on the MMA fighters. Well, they're up on their diets. Boxers, till recently, because MMA guys, they start watching everything, counting stuff and before we didn't do any of that shit. We just trained and cut weight and fucking suffered for 2-3 days cutting weight, not eating.
Yeah.
And these guys had it down to a science, you know, all that shit.
And it probably has something to do with the weight divisions, right? Because there's not as many as there are in boxing. I'm assuming.
Well, there's a couple factors. I think one, wrestling, you get a lot of fighters that came over from wrestling.
Right.
So wrestlers have mastered the art of weight cutting. You know, they're competing all the time. They're cutting weight all the time. The other thing is, for, you know, that size makes a huge difference on the ground. You know, if you're moving up a weight class, if you're striking and you know, you need your legs, you know, you need to be able to move. So you can't cut as much weight, I don't think, for a pure boxing match as you can for an MMA fight. I think you can cut a little more. I think it's a little more important in the MMA fight because the 10 pound, you know, listen, size makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Size for sure. I mean, anybody tells you that's not true is a liar.
No, it's definitely true.
You know, a couple pounds, you know, on the ground, if you guys are this, you know, equal skill wise, then that's when that strength is gonna play a factor.
Right.
Exactly. Ah, fuck. Listening to this dude, I fucking lost my next question. But I was gonna ask him, Chris, how many fights did you have in MMA before you got in the UFC? Do you remember?
I think like 14.
Damn, that's actually
like
a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Compared to what it is now, I think guys are getting like 5 fights. Oh, welcome. Some guys are even debuting in the UFC now.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, they have 1 or 2 fights. I think didn't Bo Nicholson, he had like 1 or 2?
Well, yeah, Bo Nickel, he's kind of a special.
Yeah,
he's a special case for sure because he's he's a world class competitor.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I see guys, you know, with you know, they're snatching them quicker. You know, the UFC knows what it's looking for. You know, and so you know, if you got a guy that had a pretty good amateur career, they're 5-0. They've got a couple solid wins on their record. You know, and they're knockouts. They're an exciting fighter. Let's get this guy. Let's get him young. Let's see what he can do.
Right.
You know, I think it almost gets harder for because, you know, in boxing, 9 times out of 10, the better guy wins. You know, and as we also know, in boxing, you know, if you're red corner, every fight isn't a knockdown drag out war. You know what I mean? You're going to get tested. You're going to have a couple fights. You're going to get tested. You're going to have a couple fights. You know, MMA every time you fight there's a high risk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a much higher probability of you know, catching a knee, or there's just so many variables.
True.
So it's hard to see guys, you know, with, you know, if you have too many fights, I mean, by the time you get to, you know, 10, 15, 20 fights, you're going to have probably caught one somewhere. You know, it's
Yeah.
hard to stay undefeated.
Yeah. You know, your first fight, because people that don't, I'm sure everybody that follows you knows, but now you're refereeing and
Yep.
judging, correct?
That's correct.
And boxing and MMA or just boxing?
Both boxing and MMA.
I got to see you. I want to say, hopefully I'm right about this. Your first fight in Ontario, you refereed.
Yeah.
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 And we were there. We fought that day too.
Yeah.
And I remember that
That was
You-
that was a tough
fight.
one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's
That was
like,
a
"Don't
tough
worry,
fight.
this is easy." You
you
know,
had a hard fight.
blue,
It was a
blue
hard
corner was like, I think he was like 4-2,
Yep.
and red corner was like 7 or 8-0. Just got signed by Golden Boy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like, this kid is just gonna walk through him. Just take care of blue corner. Well,
You don't get hurt.
blue corner cracked him, bro, right out the gate. You know, the kid was on ice skates, and yeah, he couldn't regain him. He got dropped in the first round, dropped twice in the second round, and I'm thinking, I remember in the second round, I'm going, oh God, I'm gonna have to step in and stop it. You know, I was counting him, I was getting ready to stop it, and thank God, corner threw in the towel. So because I knew either way, Chris's first fight, he stops the undefeated guy. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't win.
Kiss a win.
God damn.
I thought about. I
remember.
was watching Chris. I was like, oh man, that's a fucked up fight to get for the first
You gotta
round.
do,
real.
you know, and I'll tell you what was worse than that is like, luckily I have amazing tutelage, to teaching my reffing and judging. So I had both Tom Taylor and Jack Reese grab me. They pull me into the back room after the fight, and they sit me down in a chair. Right, so now it's just the three of us. I felt like I went to the principal's office, and I'm looking at them. They both go, "Well, how do you think you did?"
Yeah.
I was so scared. I was so intimidated by those guys. I was like,
And they're the coolest fucking guys. But
They
when
are.
it comes to
They
like
take
their
it
job,
serious.
they're very, very serious.
Thomas Taylor is one of
Yeah.
my. They're both Reese
Yeah.
and Taylor are some of my favorite referees.
Same. I
the
agree with
best,
that.
the
Yeah.
best. Yeah. And I did Jack's course. You know, that's kind of how I started getting into the reffing. I took his course, so he's really helped me out a lot along the way. It's
Yeah.
been man, talk about invaluable to for me making the shift. You know, obviously, MMA has been part of my life, my whole life. And as far as boxing goes, yeah, I did some boxing in middle school and whatnot, but I've been mostly just a fan.
Yeah.
Mostly a fan. I wasn't really,
What made you want to jump into boxing?
I like boxing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I like it more.
Yeah.
I like it more. Like obviously it's the sweet science, and
Yeah.
like I said, 9 times out of 10 the better guy wins. You know what I mean? Where skill, you can just watch. You watch two guys that are close, and you'll watch the first round will be close, second round will be close, third round, you'll see the better guy just slowly start to pull away,
Break away, yeah.
you slowly start to break him, and the amount of skill that can be put into the hands, it's so much, the stance, the slipping, the rolling, you don't get to see a lot of that
Yeah.
in MMA. I mean, you roll a punch, you might eat a knee. You know
That's
what I mean?
true, man.
So you gotta stand up taller. Your guard has to be wider. You're worried about wrestling too. So, when you blend everything together, it kind of muddies it a little bit. So personally, I enjoy watching high-level boxing and then high-level jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
If I'm usually watching something at home, I'm watching one of those two things separately.
Right.
Then obviously with MMA, I stay up, so I'm always watching, the UFC. There's certain fighters that I always tune in, when they fight.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to stay up on what's going on. Keep all the names, as many guys as are coming in and out of the UFC. It's hard to keep track. So I'm always working to, make sure I know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Let me take this sweater off.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Maggie, one of my favorite referees from California is Popeye Ray.
Yeah.
Popeye Ray, Thomas Taylor, Jack Reese. Now seeing Leben there,
Mm-hmm.
Caes Jr. We have good David Sullivan.
Yeah.
We have some
Coach Ensign's brand right here. Yeah.
Ensign, man. Oh yeah,
Ensign of blood.
Ensign and
With that sweater.
Ensign and Egan are two brothers from. I think they're Japanese, but they're from Hawaii.
All right.
I think, and they were kind of like the ones who brought up Barry Yoshida.
Ah, okay.
And Barrett's my boy.
He's
you know?
he's Hawaiian.
Yes.
From Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barrett's my
Yeah.
boy. He's one of the guys who, when I first came into the gyms that had MMA and boxing and
Right.
everything, he was one of the guys that I met. And I used to hear stories about that dude, and I used to be like, and I saw him walk in the room, and he's like small, and I'm like, there's no way, bro. And
He's
then
always so chill, so cool.
I
Man.
seen him.
Until he gets on
Until
the
he
mat.
gets on the mat, huh? That's what Joe's telling me. He's like a master, man.
It never ceases to blow my mind.
Yeah.
He'll still come in and he'll roll with every single guy in class for 2 hours straight. You know,
That's dope.
Yeah, he's special. So that's the guys, you know.
Yeah.
And if you watch Ensign on Pride,
wow,
that guy was amazing.
Wild.
Yeah, and they have
Yeah.
a presence when they walk in, you know.
Yeah.
All the fighters that have that little it factor.
Yup.
This dude right here,
They-
man. All these
yeah.
guys, you know, they walk in the room, you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they
Absolutely.
pay their dues.
Mm-hmm.
They paid their dues. I wanted to ask you something. I saw a post of yours recently. What does it make you feel like when you watch little Liam compete? Liam, your son,
Mhm.
who's what? How old is he now?
7.
7. Is it nerve wracking for you? Is it
Mhm.
fun? I know he's doing jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
What's it like being a dad watching your son?
You know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I really enjoy, working with him. I have him in a Tama Jiu-Jitsu, which is a great kids program, which is right here in OB, this side of town. But then also I get a chance to work with him and a couple of his buddies pretty regularly, and it's fun to watch him, evolving and growing, and especially this last competition, we lost. But he was bummed. He had his last match was a 2-2 score, but we weren't the last ones to score. So in that tournament, he lost.
Yeah.
And he was bummed. And that's actually kind of makes me happy. To see that
You care.
to see him go out there, put out the effort, and try. Tournament before last, he got an armbar win, and that after 3 losses, he got an armbar. So it was huge, and I think that's important for kids, because right now, we're in baseball, and everybody's a winner. Every game's
God.
every game's a draw.
That's crazy, man.
So
Competition trophies.
you put your kid on the jiu-jitsu mat, and he goes out there, he fights hard, and he loses, and then he comes back, he cries a little bit. He comes back motivated. I want to get back in the gym. I want to fix what I did wrong. I mean, these are life skills that are invaluable. These are life skills that
For sure.
a lot of people in my age and younger just don't have nowadays.
Yeah.
That not everything is fair. The world isn't fair. You gotta go out there and take it. So there's that. The other side of it is watching some of the other parents. I try to remind myself this is for him. This is not for me.
That's deep, yeah.
I'm not trying to live through my kid.
Right.
Because I see some of these parents, and you can tell the kids, some of these kids probably go to a tournament every single weekend. And I'm sure that they would rather be, at a birthday party or doing something,
Being a kid.
Yeah.
being a kid, and dad's screaming on the side, and I'm like, you're 6 and 7-year-olds, not the world title. You know what I mean? There's no 50 grand bonus
Yeah.
here.
It's unnecessary pressure, man.
Like, chill out.
Yeah.
Chill out. I get it. I get excited too, but I'm pretty quiet. I let Johnny, I let his coach do most of the talking that he works with mostly. So, and among coaches, that's just,
It's a rule.
That's a respect.
Yeah, it's a
thing, of
rule of
course,
respect. Yeah. It's because it's like the man in the arena. He's done it. So
Yeah.
that most parents probably
have
haven't
not.
done nothing
Yeah.
like that, So that's huge for little Liam too. Also, like to be like as he gets older,
Yeah.
recognizes his dad, what he's done, and your gym, man, your gym is thriving. I love One Training Center, right?
Thank you. The training center.
The training center. I'm
The
so sorry. The
training
training
center,
center.
right here, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
That gym is nice right there in
So like PB-ish, right?
Yeah, PB.
It's like in that weird
If you
border
guys know
area.
where the gym is,
Yeah.
I'm the 3rd floor of that building. So
Okay.
right on Garnett, right off I-5. Worst parking lot in the world, but there's
the
great
best gym.
but there's great training. Listen, if you can put up with that, you'll get
You're
good.
good,
You'll
yeah.
get good.
People that love fighting or training, they'll find a way.
Yeah.
They
They'll
do.
find a
Hell
way.
yeah.
They'll find
They
a way.
do. Listen, downstairs is like the legit, if you're a bodybuilder,
Bodybuilder,
like,
yeah.
it's the gym to be at.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody finds a way to get there. Same thing with upstairs. You know, our jiu-jitsu mat is completely packed every night. Everybody finds a way to get
It's
there.
3 floors. It's 2 floors.
2 floors of weights on
Weights?
bottom,
Okay.
and then I'm the third
third?
floor.
Right
yeah,
on.
yeah.
I
Is there
consider
a
going
floor
there.
above you?
There is a floor above
Yeah, because
me.
the first time
Oh,
I
for
went,
real? There's
first
four?
time I went to that
Yeah.
one.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
Yeah.
So the floor above me is my buddy. He does like bodyguard certification and
Because
stuff.
it looked like a
that.
fight
Oh,
gym.
shit.
It looked,
Yeah.
When I went, it was empty. But I opened it, and I was like, "This doesn't look like the gym that I've seen on pictures." You know?
Yeah. Nick, he does City Safe. So if you're ever trying to be, you know, work the door at a bar or whatever, be a security guard, he takes care of all that. And then
Ooh.
training center, we're the third floor. You know, it's a pretty big space. I think we're like 7,000 square feet in there. And then downstairs is the mecca for bodybuilding. So the whole spot is catered to, you know, that kind of lifestyle.
Fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was considering that gym for bodybuilding like a couple years ago. It was before your gym was there for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's great trainers in there. There's because most of the
It's like
trainers
world renowned, man. That spot.
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, serious?
Yeah.
If you're a bodybuilder and you're in San Diego, that's a
That's a
stop.
spot.
That's a stop you're gonna
Yeah.
have to make. If you're visiting, like you go there to say it's like I mean I think the gym and you know maybe Venice Beach World.
Yeah.
In Venice Beach. you
Oh
know.
wow, is that like that?
It's kind of the
Yeah,
spots.
it's a good gym. They still got all that old school equipment, like old school bodybuilding. It's not like a new
Yeah, they got all the
real bodybuilders want a gym like that, pretty
Yeah,
much.
they got all the crazy machines. Something looking at some of them like, wait, how does this thing goes here? It's like some dude welded it in his garage in like the 70s.
Yeah.
But that's the machine.
that.
That's the one to have, you know.
Yeah.
So
What
it's
muscle is
pretty
that for? Like,
cool.
Chris, this is gonna make you dig deep or see if you even remember. But do you remember the first fight you had? Do you remember how you felt?
My first MMA
MMA fight, yeah, fight, not a street fight, an MMA fight.
Yeah, of course I do.
What was it like for you? Were you nervous, worried? I know it's a dumb question, but
well, so kind of the precursor is once I signed up at Team Quest in Portland, Oregon, my coach Robert Follis, you know, from the second day I came in, he'd say, "Hey Chris, how you doing?" I'd say, "Did you give me a fight yet?" And Robert used to love to tell the story.
Yeah.
The next day, I'd say, "Hey, did you give me a fight yet?"
on your second day,
Second day, did you give me a fight yet? So I literally ended up fighting 6 months after I started training.
Oh,
You know,
Makes
my
six
sense.
months
Yeah.
in, finally, he's like, "Yeah, fuck, I got you a fight. You're fighting. You want to fight? You're fighting. You know." And I remember I was fighting Justin. I think his last name Terrahurst. R.I.P. He ended up passing away from cancer, you know, but was a great guy, and I think he was a Greco state champion, you know. So I remember coming out. This guy's like 6'1", looked like a giant. He had like a biohazard tattoo, and I was like thinking, like, I remember turning to my coach and go, "What the fuck did I do this?" I told everybody I know. Literally, my whole world is out there
They're all here.
in that crowd. I was so excited. I told everybody I knew, and I just walking out to the cage, I started realizing how dumb of an idea that was. All right, and I remember, and if if I could find the video somewhere, but like during the stare down, I'm trying to stare him down. I'm trying to look tough, and my bottom lip just starts going, starts fucking shivering. Starts,
Fucking palms start getting
But yeah, I ended up winning that fight. It was Class B pancreation. So back then, we could only slap to the head, open hand to the head, and then I finished from a key lock from or an Americana from mount, which if you know jiu-jitsu is not the most technical thing, right? Really not supposed to work, but made it work, and then and then I remember, you know, I went home. I got on the underground, which back then they had boards, you know, they would talk about things, you know, there was the FCFF had a board, the underground, and there was like 10 people talking about my fight. And I was like, that's it. I'm hooked. I quit going to college. I said, I told my girlfriend at the time, yeah, I'm going to quit going to night school. She said, oh, good. You spent some time at home. I was like, no, I got to train every day.
I'm about to marry the sport.
I got to train every day, you know? So, I mean, that's what I did. And obviously that relationship didn't work out. I ended up moving into my best friend's mom's house. You know, I moved into her basement because she would rent it to me for $200 a month. And, you know, I worked a couple hours in the morning and then I trained all day, you know, and that was probably the first 4 years of my career.
That's dope.
Chris, when you first fought, I'm sorry, the next question was, but you just made me think of something else, but did you have nerves the last fight you had, the bare knuckle fight?
I always have nerves.
So, okay. So that's what I tell, like, people don't understand. Like, people think that these fighters that are mega stars, like, fighting on big stages, they think they fade away. But I remember that fight. There was a friend of yours there.
Mm-hmm.
You said he was there with you from, like, the first UFC fight, I think it was, or you just know.
Oh, Ed Herman. Ed Herman he cornered me for my very first fight.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
I thought that was fucking cool, man.
He cornered me for my last fight. Eddie's one of my best friends. We don't always talk. We might not talk for 6 months, you know, and we pick up where we left.
Yeah, it's badass.
We're like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you know, I give him a lot of credit to why I made it to the UFC. Like we were best friends, but we hated each other in the gym.
In the gym.
we got into multiple fist fights.
Yeah.
You know, both of us leaving the gym crying because one was doing better than the other one. You know,
that's badass though. See, that's the things that I like to touch on.
Yeah,
and you know, I credit a lot of that to why I made it to where I did was that rivalry,
right?
And it's great because my son has the same thing. What we got, it's actually our neighbor Owen is the exact 56 pounds. My kid is 56 pounds, and you know they're friends until they start going live. And as soon as that match starts, guaranteed, like 70% chance it's going to end up with one of them crying and freaking out, you know, but they go hard. They push each other and you need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need that. If you don't have if you're an upcoming fighter and you don't have a gym rival, you need to make one.
Yeah.
You need to, I'm not saying you have to be their enemy, but your teammates, sure, but
somebody to fucking help you bring out that dog.
Yeah.
But a little bit of that rivalry is fuel for the fire.
You know, I wasn't anywhere his level as a fighter, but I had a friend. To this day, he's still my friend, Aníbal Solís. And he was like a weight division under me. And literally I beat him up 300 times in the gym. That's what we always talk about. But the last time I sparred him, he kicked my ass. And he never sparred me ever after that.
He's like, I got my victory, man.
Match, bro. You know how that goes.
And he will not. He always talks shit that he wants.
And I'm done.
Yeah, he's done.
That's
retired.
it.
Yeah.
You don't want to give him that work again.
A rematch, bro.
And I'm done.
He's
like
a
smart guy. Sounds like your friend's a smart guy.
He's a cool ass guy. Go ahead.
I did want to say real quick, when we had that fight in Oregon with Javin, it was pretty rad. And when
everybody fucking knew this dude. They were talking about you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know him.
Okay.
They didn't believe me, bro. I was about to call you.
And in Oregon?
Yeah. I forgot the gym we were at in Oregon.
We were in Salem. It was like something
Gabe
training.
Shirley, was that your referee?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But the gym, the guy does fights, and he said
Daniel Priebi or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. They all knew you. The gym was big, and they were talking about. Hey, I know him too. Like, yeah, okay, whatever.
It was a big open gym, man. Like,
okay.
Here I am scrolling through my fucking pictures, looking for pictures of Chris. You know,
touch me on the shoulder.
Yeah, I met him once. But man, yeah, I did you have to ask him? We're gonna ask Chris a question, or that was the same thing we touched on already?
Oh no, I was gonna ask, like, given you say you still watch the UFC,
of course.
but I started watching back in 2013, 2014, then that's when it just fucking took off when Conor and Ronda. That's when I started watching it, getting into combat sport or the MMA. I was into boxing, but given how much it's grown, like today. Right, all these cards that they have, and how far the sport has come. How do you feel about what you did, the stamp that you put into the sport of MMA and in the UFC?
Well, I mean, everything is time dependent. Like people go, like what would happen if you fought Bruce Lee or something? You know what I mean? Something like that. I'm like, you can't even compare. It's apples to oranges, And the truth be told, the level of the fighters nowadays compared to the level of the fighters, when I was competing, it's completely different.
Right.
Would I have even made it in the UFC and done what I did if I was 20 years old right now today? I don't know. I can't. I'll never be able to answer that. I do feel like my time in the UFC was great. It was great for fighters like me because you saw a lot more of guys going out there to beat the other dude's ass.
Right.
Of going out there and fighting to the death. Nowadays, and it's no fault of anybody's own, the skill level is so high and guys are so dangerous that you see a lot more fights, especially amongst high level guys where they have to rely on a game plan. They have to be aware of if they're up on the cards or down on the cards. And if they're up on the cards, they have to know like I can't take a lot of risk.
Right.
I mean, it's much more calculated now than it was. Because it's a higher level, but is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? I think it's just different. A lot of people will come up to me and say, I love the air. You guys left it all in the cage when you fought. Now these guys didn't, but listen, it is what it is. The sport has evolved.
Right. It sounds kind of like the similar conversation in boxing. A lot of people, love the 80s era. And I think the 80s, 90s maybe is one of the most exciting eras that boxing had, you know what I mean?
Because everybody fought everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And like he said, left it all in the cage, left it all in the ring too.
Yep.
Popular debate nowadays.
Chris, I'm like, my mind is spinning, bro. I have a lot of things. I just don't want to ask the same shit twice. Your last fight, when I was at your fight, you were doing the press conference in Florida. We're in Tampa, and you went on the stage and you said something, and I had it recorded. I feel stupid that I erased a lot of things. I had no memory on my phone. I erased a lot of shit. But you said
it's time to upgrade.
Yeah. I know. Trust me. You said something about you picked your opponent for that fight, and the only other guy you had picked was Silva.
Yeah.
One of them was Wanderlei Silva, and the other one's Quentin fucking Henry. All right, this is my last fight. That guy comes out to slug, and I'm gonna knock him the fuck out on Friday.
Why the fuck did you pick Silva when he was fucking scary, bro?
Southpaw Leben in the white trunks. Silva in the black trunks. Quick hands. Big shot by Leben. Leben looking to finish him. Chris Leben trying to finish Silva. It is all over. Wanderlei Silva beaten by Chris Leben.
Come on.
I'm asking you because I know who you are. People don't know.
Well, I actually had asked to fight Wanderlei Silva for a long time, and
that motherfucker was murdering people, dog.
Yeah. And in pride, because when I started fighting was Wanderlei's era in Pride, when he was literally murdering people.
Yeah.
And I did a lot to try to emulate his style. I thought it was incredible. So I had asked Dana several times. I brought it up to him. And then Wanderlei was supposed to fight Akiyama. Wanderlei got hurt. I stepped in. That's when I came in on 2 weeks' notice. I had just fought Aaron Simpson. They called me back 2 days later. I was eating a pizza and drinking a bottle of wine, and they were like, You want to fight in 12 days or 11 days? And I was like, all right, let's go.
There's the chips and pizza.
Let's go, yeah. So next thing I know, I was back on a plane to Vegas and ended up winning the Akiyama fight. And then after the Akiyama fight, I called him out. I said, hey, listen, this was supposed to be your fight, Wanderlei. I beat this guy. Now it's time for us. And then I remember nothing happened. Went home, week or two passes. I'm driving in my truck and I remember my phone rings. I pick it up. It's Dana White. And he just says, be careful what you wish for, kid. I said, yeah. He said, you want that fight? You're getting that fight. And he hung up the phone. That was it. And then I hung up the phone and I had to pull over because I was literally shaking. I was like, oh God.
Like that first fight.
Yeah. I was like shaking, like, what the fuck did I just do? What did I just do? But I will tell you this. Fear can be very motivating. I think I was more prepared and in better shape for that fight against Wanderlei Silva than any fight I'd ever been in. Nobody wants to get beat up, especially on national TV, especially by, there's certain guys that, you think they might beat you, but they're not that scary. you know, like a Damian Maia or something. He might
Right.
submit you or something, you know, catch you in a heel hook or whatever. You know, Wanderlei Silva, if he beats you, that's scary. You think you might die.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching
Shut
him.
your
You know,
lights out.
You know,
That's crazy.
so it ended up having a great camp. And, you know, my coach, Burton Richardson, we had worked the exact game plan for the fight. It was the only fight I've ever had where the game plan that we worked in the gym worked out in the flight flawlessly. And, you know, fight was 27 seconds and that was it.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
God damn.
So
man.
he says that, I mean, I knew who Silva was. I already knew in the UFC. Now I already did my research on the UFC.
Yeah.
So when he called out this dude, he fought. When he told me who he was fighting, I looked up a couple of his fights, and I'm like, this motherfucker's wild. He's strong, big boy, country boy.
Brazilian, right?
No, he was a country boy from like Texas. No, where's it? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were still talking about.
No, Brazilian. No, when the bare knuckle fight. Yeah, we were getting ready for
Kentucky or Alabama.
Yeah, somewhere out there.
Something.
The dude came in, looked like a fucking had the long hair. You know.
I think I know who you're talking about.
And I was like, if Chris doesn't catch him, it's gonna be a tough fight because that motherfucker, from what I saw, you know.
Yeah. Well, he was undefeated.
Yeah.
He was undefeated at
young
the time,
guy.
And he had just walked through his first 3 opponents.
Yeah.
But he fought the same way that I fought. He was also a weight class up from me. So so instead of 85, I chose to go 205. So he's a weight class higher. But I figured, because I knew it was going to be my last fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had told him I was retiring after that. The BKFC Nate kept calling me, come on, buddy. I know you got one more. We'll give you whoever you want. You know, let's do it. You know, finally I was like, all right. You know, I'd like to go out, you know, go out on, you know, on my terms anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so let's do one more fight, you know, and we picked our opponent, tough kid, and we ended up working out. And he did exactly what I planned. It was exactly the way I wanted to finish my career. It was a slugfest, you know. I remember after the fight, one of my buddies was like, man, that punch he hit you with, I was really worried because he caught you right in the jaw. And I'm like, no, he didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. He shows me the video and like, you know, you could see the punch connect. I didn't even feel it in the fight. I'm on the airplane home and my tooth falls out.
Oh shit.
So I never had the guts.
A delayed reaction.
Yeah, I never had the guts to tell anybody that, you know, it was
that's cool.
It was from the fight.
Yeah.
You know
I didn't even know. And I flew back with him.
Yeah, my tooth came out and I was like, I'll just at first I told myself that's just a fluke, you know.
Yeah.
Then I was like, you know what? I might as well give credit
Some props.
credit where
give him some
credit's
props.
due. He caught me good.
Hey, you know what? To give that kid deserved props because he got hit in the eye or something like that. Someone, it was a punch.
Yeah.
It was
And
knuckle.
never giving him a chance to recover. It should have been stopped right there because it was a punch. And I was like, that sucks in my head. You're thinking all these things in a split second. Like, that's fucked up. Chris's last fight is going to be like a controversy. You know, like a guy said he poked him, but when they went back to the replay.
No, you didn't knock him out. You got up and grabbed his eye and started yelling. So that's when I stopped the time and got the doctor.
Chris Liebman throwing some uppercuts right there. That one of them just might have got him in the eye. I don't think it was a finger sticking out. It looked like it was just a good knuckle.
I believe it's the last left hand of that sequence.
In the eye?
Time called here in round number.
Yeah, and it actually, Coach, I think I've had this conversation. It's about it's the way that I throw my uppercut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a couple things, and Coach worked with me on my hook too. I throw them a little different. The uppercut, I don't turn it over. I just throw it straight out like that. And so I literally had a bruise, bare knuckle.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to block that lane. It slides right in, and I literally had a bruise, a ring around my knuckle. So my knuckle, he got poked in the eye, but it was with a knife.
With a knife.
It was the replay. But at the moment, you don't know that as a coach. You know, I'm watching because I'm getting everything ready. I'm sitting down. That shit went right into it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a way for him. I don't want Chris to go out like this with the guy sitting down. And the guy got up and gave, you know, he tried to fight.
Yeah.
And Chris caught him. And
he got up and went hard, and he caught me. He caught me, and then I caught him again.
Henry on the right hand, dropping his head, throwing absolute huge shots with the overhand. Right hand connects, left hand and the left hook.
Yeah.
That was awesome, man. That was a moment. I won't forget that one.
Why am I forgetting his name? Too many head punches. Justin. Oh, jeez.
I'll tell you his name right now.
He has like brown curly hair. Or something,
look it up. We should give him the props he deserves. Yeah.
Does he wear like American flag shorts?
He does.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Henry.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fucking bare knuckle, man. That shit's that's something different.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
It really
is.
is.
Be down to be doing that. At least you're getting paid though. Some people do it for free on the streets.
Yeah, and I've been refereeing bare knuckle too. The last 3 shows that have come to
California.
And it's so funny because it's not boxing.
No,
it's not boxing. It's not MMA. It's just it's its whole own thing. It's the technique, the styles used are different. Anytime you change any sort of little variable in a sport, you change the sport completely.
Yep, I agree.
You can't go out there and try to box. I mean, that sport is all gas and no brake.
It is.
Like you just gotta be first.
I remember sparring Chris for that fight because he was beating up the sparring partners, bro. The only guy I could bring in was professional boxers, because I had some guys that were sparring him, like poor Crosby, man. He almost fucking lost his brain cells. Yeah. Love Crosby.
Yeah.
But I just, Crosby was fundamentally sound.
I remember Coach brought this one kid from Tijuana.
National team.
and I looked, I was like, fucking 20-year-old kid looks like he should be skateboarding down Rosecrans here. I'm like, what are you doing, Coach? He's like, that kid hit me in the liver so hard.
Palomita.
That
motherfucker, dude.
Turned out he'd been like laying concrete or something.
Yeah,
so
he still does that.
12 years old.
No, but when I sparred,
man, the kid had hands of bricks,
hard,
cinder
dude.
block
Super
hands.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is that?
He weighs like
Palomita.
$160.
He just
He's $160.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Palomita special.
And that motherfucker take a punch too.
Yeah, he could smart.
I remember that. They kept going like, no headgear? No, Coach trying to explain to him, no, he doesn't wear headgear.
Oh, yeah, he didn't want to because he was going to get used to that
I noticed that a lot of MMA guys don't wear headgear when they spar. Guys, I said that it like kind of gets in the way, right?
They don't. Yeah, hindsight's 20/20.
Or it should have been.
As a coach, I like my guys to wear headgear.
Yeah.
When they're getting their hard rounds. When I was in my 20s and stuff, I just didn't do it. We didn't know as much, honestly, about CTE and whatnot. You know, and I just thought it was kind of wimpy. And my head is so big already that if you add another inch to the circumference,
that's like a big target.
It's like a foot bigger target.
Yeah.
So
you can't dodge a punch.
Slipping anything goes right out the window.
Hey, Chris, I can't think of I don't know, in boxing, I don't know how many of these referees actually fought. I don't care if they're amateur or pro, but I don't know. And UFC, a lot of the referees fought before, like you did?
No.
You're like a pioneer, huh?
I mean, there's some, Herb Dean fought. He fought Joe Diesel Riggs in WEC back in the day. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan Romero here in California. He's got a whole bunch of fights. California, everybody on our commission has been involved in martial arts
somehow. The
majority of their life.
I know Popeye Ray used to train with Ben Lita.
Yep.
And he was an amateur boxer, and his son fought pro. So I know he knows the ins and outs.
David Sullivan was a great.
David, I actually worked for the same gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not the same gym, the same community. I'm from David. I know David since I was a little kid.
Yeah. Awesome. He's actually been helping me out a lot.
He's a badass dude.
He's dope, man.
Yeah.
Dave and Dale and I know the whole Sullivan family.
Dave and Pat, I've been getting
Pat's that's the gangster right there. Pat Russell.
Pat Russell.
Yeah.
So both those guys are local, so that they've actually.
And Pat's, they're all cool dudes.
They took the time out of their day to get me in the ring and really help me on my boxing mechanics because, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Refereeing boxing is not the same as refereeing MMA. The way that you move,
right,
is very much different. The demeanor that you carry is very much different. In boxing, you're kind of like the arbiter. You want to make the fight come to its natural conclusion. You know what I mean? And you can kind of let the fighters work some stuff out amongst themselves. Where in MMA, I think there's a lot more stuff going on. So we're a little stricter about the rules. You know what I mean? We're a little it's just different.
What an interesting take, man.
It's just different.
Are you one of the only ones that does both? The referees in both? So I'm
There's
trying to think.
That
I'm like,
fought.
you know
that fought also?
there's a guy he's great up north that does both as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But did he fight MMA?
No, I don't think he fought. But he
There's only one Chris Leben, dog. Chris, you ever seen those videos where fighters get mad at the referee and they choke him or punch him and they try to hit the referee?
Oh yeah.
Do you ever wish that happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a few where they they started trying to grapple. They started trying to take me down or whatever. Because they were out.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit.
They're out and they were fighting for their life. And
God damn.
They just reset. They go back.
They're still going. You'd get in there, try to break it up. They're still going. They're on.
He's like, I'm wearing pants, dog.
They're on autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
But that's always it shows to the crowd very easily that it was a good stoppage.
Yeah. It justifies your stoppage.
Yeah. They're like, people are like, he was still there. He was still like, no, he was fighting the wrong guy.
I see where cornermen tell the referees like, fuck you, when they get mad in the locker room. People don't see what goes on in the locker room. Yeah, when they're walking back to the locker room, because that referee has to go back in the locker room same way we go.
Yep.
And I've seen where people are yelling at the referees like, fuck you, and you're a piece of shit, and this and this and that. And I'm like, dude, the referees have to be professional as well,
Yeah.
Reffing and judging, you just have to have thick skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's as simple as that. I've been judging a lot of the UFC, fight night cards. And I mean, there's a lot of people and they're betting a lot of money. So no matter what call you make, somebody's going to be unhappy and somebody's going to think you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, you just got to get used to that. And Andy's real big, with us in California about, you just let it go. Let it go. If there's a major problem, bring it to the commission. But I never reply.
Mm-hmm.
I never say anything back. So if you're one of these guys writing me, listen, the reason is I'm not going to get in that arguing match with you. I can't do it, so sometimes I want to. Sometimes I want to be like, are we talking about the same fight?
It takes a lot of self-control.
Like, did you not watch that fight?
Yeah. And and you have as referees, that perspective is unique because even in the corner, we don't see everything. We literally only see one angle, and a lot of the time we're blocked off by ropes and even the posts, and that's literally right in front of us. So
same.
Yeah,
same.
We sometimes only watch maybe like fucking a minute and a half of the whole 3-minute round.
Well, and it's the same thing with judges. I think some people don't understand that we don't have 4 different views like you do on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've a lot of times I've got the door, I've got the corner right here, right, and I've got the door post. If we're talking about the UFC, right here, blocking out this section, so I can
just like us in the corner.
I can see 75% of the ring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a blind spot.
Sometimes you can miss that special kick or that special punch that
You know what I mean?
persuades the
So
judges.
that's why you have 3 judges, and that's why they're on different sides of the ring.
Right.
And also it's human nature. Like as a judge, you might like aggression. Some guys like people backpedaling. People like different.
Well,
in boxing.
Well,
MMA,
we have, it's not what I like.
Yeah.
When I judge, it's not what I like. I've scored a fight many times for the opponent, somebody that was not what I liked. I do. I like, if somebody is pushing the fight the whole time, naturally you want to reward them.
Yeah.
That's not how we score.
Risk, yeah.
That's not how we score, right?
Yeah.
We score by effectiveness and damage, and I'll give you a great example. If any of you watched the English dude, the main event of the UFC last week, and that kid fought a really good, really calculated game plan.
Petty?
No, the fight night, the weekend before.
Oh, the weekend. I didn't catch it.
Fought Miller, and he just jabbed his face off. Just circling jab, dropped him with a straight right, but never overcommitted. Never wanted to get into a brawl.
Just play it safe from the outside.
Played it safe from the outside. And what do you do? That kid wins that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having fighters that actually fought be judges.
Oh yeah.
I like that, and I hope that that there's a trend that's set off that has more. But again,
I think it will.
I think it will too eventually.
I think it will now because we're finally now in an era where that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
When I was fighting, there the sport hadn't been around that long.
Right.
So you know what I mean? There just wasn't that many, but now I don't see why not. Most of the guys that are coming into the field now should have probably been, you know, been in the sport. And it's funny because I hear people go, oh, you know, some referees are judged. No, I don't train because I don't want to go to, like, listen, if you're going to be a good judge or you're going to be a good referee, you're going to have some biases. You're going to know some people.
Right.
At least I hope so.
Yeah,
I
that's
hope
true.
you've done this sport your whole life. If you've done this sport your whole life, you're going to be embedded in it to some extent.
Yep.
You know, I mean, otherwise you know, if you want completely unbiased people, you're going to get people that never trained.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
So
Don't really understand
yeah,
certain things.
there you go.
Hey, Chris,
True.
we'll leave with this one. I have a story. Story time. When we're getting ready for Chris' last fight,
Bare knuckle.
yeah, bare knuckle fight. I say, Chris, I'm gonna do road work with you.
Yeah.
I never seen a
This
fight.
is-
I never seen a fighter that hated road work.
This is when Coach was running. He was running.
Oh yeah,
a
he's
lot.
running 10 miles a day
Yeah,
and
he
shit.
was on a running kid.
Yeah, I was running high. That was my thing. I was running a lot. So I remember I was track Chris's miles, and I would tell him, "Hey, you're doing better every so often. Every week he was getting better
Yeah.
in this time."
Fitness getting better.
But I remember the last run we did it where I live at in Crest, and I
Okay.
go, "This is the
Oh,
last
man.
one, dog. Come on!" And he's like, "I can't wait for this shit to be over."
Up in those hills. Yeah. Yeah.
It's altitude.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, your ears will start popping
And-
going up there.
and
For real.
we were running, and he's like, "I can't wait for this shit to be over. It's my last fucking run." And I said, "Don't say that, because there's gonna be a day you're gonna regret when you can't run anymore."
Yeah.
And he just looked at me. He just, whatever. He kept running because Chris gets in a little mood, you know. So I like
Yeah.
work around his mood when we were training, and he got sick.
Yeah.
He got sick like what, a year later, 8 months later, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. About a year later.
He got COVID bad.
Oh,
And
shit,
we were
the
almost
long
losing this
COVID?
motherfucker.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
went through
man.
an experience. I remember talking to him when he was in the hospital. He
Yeah.
could barely talk. And he said, "Man, I remember you saying about running. I wish I could even walk."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. Definitely puts into perspective, you know,
Yeah.
what's important. Yeah.
But I see you still stay in shape. You're training all the time. You have to. I mean, that's who you are. You're a
I
fighter.
do.
Yeah.
Well, I started to get fat, and yeah, a little bit, and I realized I don't have a fight to get ready for. You know what I mean? So I have to maintain now. You know what I mean? Because as a coach or as a trainer, it's equally as important to me. If I'm going to tell guys how to diet, and I'm going to tell guys what I should walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some trainers that are just, they've let themselves
go.
go
Yeah,
completely,
lot.
you know, and that's fine. They're great trainers, but it's just something I don't want to do. It's just, you know, and then also as a referee, you know, same thing with referees. If
Kinda
you're going to be a
need that,
referee,
right?
you need to be in top shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're going to be older than those guys already, but you need to be in top shape. You need to be ready. God, for that you can control them if should you have to,
Right.
you know.
Then you got to
And
get
even-
then you got to get Liam ready when you get
Going
his
around.
older.
That's it. I got it. Yeah. I'm training to hold him off now. Yeah. So, you know, people ask me, you know, what I train for, whatever. I don't really train. I'm really just training to slow the decline.
Mhm.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, I'm just trying to hold on to as much as I have for as long as I can get. That's my goal. I want to be able to roll jujitsu. I want to be able to jump in, get a couple rounds with my guys, you know, for as long as possible.
Yep.
You know,
I stay semi in shape because sometimes I get people that come in and spar,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you get those guys that are beating up on members that have a little bit of experience, and I just jump in there once in a while with them. That's the only reason I do it.
Yeah.
little silent justice.
Yeah, just jump in real quick.
Quick little
Hey,
rubber shot.
have you ever had an issue with somebody writing something bad about you guys in Yelp?
Not on my gym. No.
I did, about me at the gym.
Yeah.
That I was an asshole and this and
Got
that.
named
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and they threw my name in there, and I was like, dude,
Can't deny.
no, I know I did it, but
Yeah.
you left out a lot of
Joe
key
Vargas.
parts, dog. Like,
Yeah. Well, told
Of
one side of that
course.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's how it always is.
That's how that is.
It's
Yeah.
the me.
I was like, I wish he comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, Chris, thank you so much
Hell
for
yeah,
coming
Of
in.
course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's an honor to have you here, and we can't wait to see what you do. Keep doing your thing. We'll be seeing you at
Probably
fights.
seeing you
Yep.
at
At the
fights.
fights, when I
Fights.
see Chris, I'm like, hey, Chris, how you doing? We're all professional, like we're there for, like,
yeah, gotta be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you, man. Appreciate the time.
Peace.
Peace
All right,
out.
thanks, guys.
This has been a Point and Yell production. Yeah, I think the words, but sometimes they don't come out of my mouth no good.